Hello, my name is Daryl Anderson, and my presentation on my empirical research study is African American Vernacular English in English Composition Classrooms, which is a qualitative research study. Okay, so there are a lot of pedagogical strategies used to incorporate multiple varieties of English in class, but there's not much research on which of those pedagogical strategies are most effective when dealing with African American vernacular and speakers of this variety of English. So the purpose of this qualitative research study is to explore which pedagogical strategies are most effective for incorporating African American vernacular in English composition classrooms. This is important to know because there is an increasing number of African American students that are attending higher education institutes and taking English composition, and so it is beneficial for English instructors to be familiar with different pedagogical strategies in managing these dynamic classrooms. So African American Vernacular English is also known as Black Vernacular, or Black English Vernacular, or Black Vernacular English, and less formally is known as Ebonics. And so this is a variety of English that is primarily spoken in African American communities and has its own unique grammatical, lexical, and accentual features. So here I have an example of a phrase in African American Vernacular English. I'll be waking up early on the weekends. And so this, you can see this phrase has a different grammatical structure than the standard English that we are usually used to seeing written. So this message just conveys that the speaker intends to awaken rather early, more specifically on Saturdays and Sundays. And so some English instructors, they reject these type of utterances in English composition classrooms, especially when they're written, because it's not considered standard English. However, the problem with this is it compels speakers of African American vernacular to switch to a more standard English grammar and lexicon due to pressure to conform. But really, it should be the English instructor adapting to the dynamics of their classroom. And so this paper wants to explore reasons to give English instructors for making this adaptation and the best pedagogical strategies in order to adequately instruct African American students who use African American vernacular English in their speaking and writing. So these are some keywords that are in this research, and I've already explained African American vernacular English and pedagogical strategies, but some current research defines stable variation as a variation that is not undergoing linguistic change. Such a variable exhibits the regular age pattern. A stable variable thus reflects change in speech of the individual speaker as they progress through their academic career. So another key word is bilingualism, which is a facility in using multiple variations of language, more specifically English variations, and also instructing in different varieties of English, or instructing in a standard variety of English to those who don't normally use standard English. And later on in this presentation, I'll fully explain expressive, critical, and feminist pedagogy. So, expressive pedagogy is the pedagogical strategy that concerns itself with permitting the writer to develop their own writing characteristics and voice. Instructors who implement this will center their ideology around letting students write freely in their own language to develop their writing techniques. Imposing critical pedagogy in the composition classroom encourages students to question the authoritative nature of the dominant society when it comes to writing and speaking. It focuses on working on changing issues that these underprivileged and underrepresented students have to deal with. In other words, these African American students. African American students should be able to use their own vernacular when writing about their experiences, and this kind of deals a little bit with feminist pedagogy as well, because in this approach, the instructor is actually aiding voiceless students in producing questions about establishments in order to improve themselves and their conditions, and overall their ability to express themselves. And gender plays a vital role in how African American vernacular is used, especially in English composition classrooms. So feminism is a prominent social action that should be considered when instructing African American women. Research has shown that there are issues with equality of sexes, and so this calls for advocacy of women's rights, which is feminism. Okay. When dealing with feminist theory, is overall focusing on how African American vernacular can be used by black women and thus discriminated against, not just because of their race, but because of their gender. And so this is how we're tying the theory into this actual study. Okay. So in order to justify the claims of acknowledging African American English as a viable variant to be used in composition classrooms, I'm posing this research question: what are the most effective pedagogical strategies for incorporating multiple varieties of English in composition classrooms? And so I'm asserting that the most effective pedagogical strategies are those that value alternative varieties of English just as much as a standard variety, and neither one is seen superior. And so the three pedagogical strategies that I'm focusing on in this study are expressive, critical, and feminist pedagogy, because they permit African American vernacular usage with English composition, which overall makes it an effective pedagogical strategy. So this is a qualitative research design doing a content and discourse analysis. So in this research study, observation analysis will be conducted. The researchers will observe English compositions classrooms in their natural settings and use the findings to help explain how students are utilizing all their dialects to write. So observations of classrooms will allow the variants of English to be written and spoken, and show which are the most effective methods of going about approaching this. And so, following the observations, there will be textual analysis, which will synthesize information and data from different articles dealing with this field of study, and discuss the benefits of bidialectalism. More specifically, those who don't speak the standard variation of English normally. And so there will be 10 classrooms observed with 24 students in them each, which results in a participation pool of 240, and each of these classrooms will consist of a majority of African Americans because it will take place at a historically black college and university, or more specifically Tennessee State University. And it will be conducted throughout one academic year, which lasts from the end of August to the beginning of May. And so audio recording devices will be used to store information about the language uttered in the classroom, and research would also evaluate essays written by the students and code them according to how effectively they convey their message. So, the institution review board, or IRB, will of course be involved in this study to protect the rights of the participants, and every participant will be required to sign a consent form, which basically keeps their name anonymous, and will just be using the findings and the observations as a part of the study, but not their actual identities. Okay. With the camcorder and the microphone, the observations will be recorded, transcribed, and reviewed by me and other researchers, and we will analyze it using the program NVivo, which is a qualitative data analysis computer software designed for qualitative researchers working with text-based and media. So, like I said, so there will be 10 individual English composition instructors that will be assigned each classroom. One of them will not have a designated pedagogical strategy, but the other 9 will divide up the 3 pedagogical strategies: expressive pedagogy, critical pedagogy, and feminist pedagogy. And when holding classroom discussions, composing essays, and giving presentations, the instructors will be prompted to permit all the use of all varieties of English produced by the students, especially African American Vernacular English. And these classroom discussions and activities will be recorded and observed to see how vernacular is used throughout the academic year in these English compositions classrooms, and will be measured in order to understand the advantages of doing this and allowing such a variety of English to be used. So we'll compare the results against the control group to see how beneficial using African American Vernacular in the English compositions classrooms actually is. Okay. So I said it would be qualitative data analysis using content analysis, and also a discourse analysis. And the results from the analyzed data will be linked back to the contemporary research on expressive, critical, and feminist pedagogical strategies. So overall, this study aims to answer the research question, which was once again, what are the most effective pedagogical strategies for incorporating multiple varieties of English in composition classrooms? And so, by giving the background and theoretical history of pedagogical strategies, then experimenting with the 10 English composition classrooms at Tennessee State University, which is a HBCU, this empirical research study will be able to support the hypothesis that pedagogical strategies such as expressive pedagogy, critical pedagogy, and feminist pedagogy are effective pedagogical strategies that permit and support African American vernacular usage in English composition classrooms. Okay. So the results from this research could serve as a response to, since linguists, they already understand that English composition instructors should permit the use of the oral and written use of African American vernacular in English, because it is indeed a form of English and it is reliable and constant, because they have certain grammatical structures. This is a picture of Rashawn Young, who has a lot of research dealing with code switching and code meshing, and he further explains how certain English varieties are oppressed by nature. And so, wrapping up, there are limits to content and discourse analysis, such as how long it takes and the amount of data that has to be processed. But still, in the future, more data should be looked at as far as larger participation pool and more colleges included in the study. And these are my references. These are most journals that I used.